Flags have been a fundamental means of communication since the earliest days of seafaring. Out on the open ocean, where ships were often separated by dozens of kilometers, it was essential to be identifiable at a single glance. Colors, symbols, and shapes on a banner represented identity. They declared who the ship belonged to, under which nation it sailed, and what its intentions were. Warships carried their colors with pride, merchant vessels sought protection beneath them, and privateers, armed with a royal or governmental commission to attack enemy ships, used their own emblems to distinguish themselves from ordinary pirates. A flag was far more than a piece of cloth. It was a legal document, a declaration of loyalty, and at times even a sentence of life or death. Before the seas learned to fear the famous black flags of pirates, they feared the red one. In the 16th century, the red flag, the so-called bloody flag, was used by warships to signal that no quarter would be given. In other words, no prisoners would be taken, and the fight would continue until the last man. In the 17th century, during the era of European colonial wars, hundreds of privateers roamed the Caribbean. These were men who carried a letter of marque, a royal commission allowing them to attack and plunder enemy ships. Unlike pirates, privateers were legally considered soldiers, not criminals, yet it was among them that the custom of using fearsome flags emerged. Banners meant to intimidate the enemy into surrendering without a fight. French flibustiers began to fly blood-red standards symbolizing blood, courage, and relentless resolve. In period sources, the expression "Jolie Rouge" appears, literally meaning "pretty red." According to some historians, this phrase later evolved into the English term Jolly Roger, the name that became synonymous with the pirate flag as we know it today. Another theory suggests the name may derive from the phrase Old Roger, a contemporary colloquialism for the devil himself. Red flags came in several forms. Sometimes they were nothing more than a plain crimson banner. Other times, they were embellished with simple symbols such as a sword or a skull. In both cases, they carried the same meaning. The ship that raised them did not intend to take prisoners or offer mercy. Although these flags were originally used mostly by privateers, their symbolism soon spread to ordinary pirates who no longer possessed any royal commission. The red flag retained its original meaning, and toward the turn of the century, it gave rise to its darker sister, the black flag, which, unlike the red one, offered the possibility of mercy. This gesture had a very practical purpose. Pirates preferred to capture a ship without a fight, and the threat of death was often more effective than an actual attack. The black banner, therefore, served as a kind of final warning. The image of a pirate constantly sailing under a black flag is romantic, but incorrect. In reality, the black flag was raised rarely, and only at the most advantageous moment. Pirates relied heavily on deception. To approach a target without arousing suspicion, they often sailed under the flags of foreign nations. Some crews carried several such flags: Dutch, British, Spanish, or French. Many pirate crews even used both flags, the black and the red, depending on the situation. A common tactic was to hoist a false national flag to close the distance without being recognized, then raise the black flag, often accompanied by a warning shot. This signaled that surrender was still an option, allowing pirates to board, search the ship, and seize supplies. In return, pirates sometimes left part of the cargo on board as a token gesture toward the surrendered crew. A crew that accepted this chance typically struck their own colors and prayed that their lives would be spared. If the ship hesitated or attempted to resist, the pirates would raise the red flag, a banner that could also serve as a coordinated signal to attack when multiple pirate vessels operated together. For the targeted crew, this had a clear meaning: no quarter would be given. Sometimes, pirates used no flag at all. They sailed nameless, avoiding identification. In the vast openness of the sea, the distinction between nation and crime often disappeared. A flag meant to signal allegiance became a tool of anonymity. Flags were therefore not only symbols of identity, but also instruments of strategy. In an age when hundreds of ships of different nations roamed the oceans, the color flying from the mast could become the quickest weapon deciding a crew's fate. A pirate who knew how to use it at the right moment could win a battle without firing a single shot. The first documented use of the black flag dates to the year 1700. The French pirate Emmanuel Wynne was sighted in the Atlantic Ocean flying a banner bearing a skull, crossed bones, and an hourglass. British warships that recorded the encounter noted a striking detail. The skull was positioned above the hourglass, as if to remind the viewer that time was running out. This description is considered the earliest reliable reference to a flag that already contained all the elements of what would later become the Jolly Roger. It is not entirely clear where the black color among pirates originated. Some historians link it to plague-infected ships, which flew a black flag as a warning. For sailors of that era, black signified disease, misfortune, and death. Emotions that pirates quickly learned to exploit. From the beginning, pirates also sought to make their flags personal. Every captain wanted a design that could not be mistaken for anyone else's. As a result, the flags varied not only in their symbols, but also in the way they were made. Some were painted, others sewn from scraps of canvas, often with visible stitching and irregular edges. They were unique creations with a single purpose: to inspire fear and to set their crew apart from all others. Every pirate flag carried a clear message. Despite their reputation as rough and uneducated men, pirates understood the power of imagery perfectly. The most common motif was the skull, the so-called death's head. It was a universal symbol of death. On most flags, it appeared front-facing, often with hollow eye sockets and pronounced jaws. Beneath the skull, bones or cutlasses were frequently crossed, suggesting that death would come in battle. Another common motif was the hourglass. It represented the relentless passage of time and the final moments of life slipping away as inevitably as the sand within it. On some flags, the hourglass was held by a skeletal figure, the personification of death itself. This figure might also carry a spear or an arrow. A similar figure holding a cup, sometimes depicted as a dancing skeleton, symbolized mockery of fate, an expression that pirates laughed in the face of death because they lived with it every single day. Among other symbols was the heart. According to 18th century historians, it was one of the most personal emblems to appear on pirate banners. The heart held several layers of meaning. The first was religious. In 17th and 18th century Christian iconography, the heart often represented courage, the soul itself, or repentance. On gravestones, it appeared pierced by an arrow or dagger, a symbol of pain and suffering. Pirates, raised in this cultural environment, adopted the symbol readily. In their usage, it signified death, suffering, and anguish. One of the best-known examples is the flag of Stede Bonnet, which displayed a bleeding heart. According to contemporary interpretation, the bleeding heart represented vengeance and a warning. Whoever resisted would spill their own blood. Sometimes it was even called the bleeding heart of vengeance. Each symbol carried its own meaning, but all conveyed the same message: time is running out, and death is near. And it was this visual language that turned simple pieces of cloth into a weapon, one that could break the will of entire crews before a single shot was fired. As mentioned earlier, pirate flags were never standardized. Each captain created his own emblem, a personal symbol that expressed his character, his way of fighting, and the message he wished to send to his enemies. Some of these flags are known from surviving written descriptions, others from naval reports and court records. No original flags have survived, but their designs have been reconstructed from contemporary accounts, and in several cases with a fairly high degree of certainty. It is generally believed that only 2 or 3 pirate flags have survived in physical form, although even their authenticity is debated. The appearance of the remaining flags has been reconstructed from period testimonies, in some cases with considerable reliability. The earliest documented flag that can be considered a precursor to the Jolly Roger is the banner of Emmanuel Wynne from the year 1700. This French pirate operated off the coast of Africa, and British warships reported that he flew a black flag bearing a skull, crossed bones, and an hourglass. Another example is Henry Every, known as the King of Pirates. According to eyewitness descriptions, his flag displayed a skull with crossed arms. It is unclear whether it featured additional motifs, but he is often credited as one of the first captains to unite his crew under the black color of death. Every is also said to have used a red flag with the same symbol. Thomas, too, active in the Indian Ocean, used a simple motif, an arm holding a cutlass. It was a clear symbol of attack and determination, later favored by pirates who excelled in close combat. 20 years later, Edward England created a simplified version of Emmanuel Wynne's design. His flag showed a skull above crossed bones on a black field, one of the most widespread pirate symbols of all time. It was simple, clear, and effective, appearing from the Caribbean all the way to Madagascar. Perhaps the most famous of all is the flag of John Calico Jack, Rackham. His emblem, a skull above crossed cutlasses, became an icon of piracy and remains the most recognizable version of the Jolly Roger today. Rackham operated in the Caribbean, and his flag, reportedly sewn from black silk, was as striking as his personality. It was later adopted by popular culture and transformed into the universal symbol of pirates, even for those who never used it. Another notable variant is the flag attributed to Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. It is one of the most famous, yet also one of the most mysterious symbols of the pirate era. Contemporary records confirm that his ships flew a black banner, but none describe its appearance. Even Lieutenant Maynard, the man who killed Blackbeard, mentions only a black flag in his reports, without any emblem. The design known today, a skeleton holding a spear aimed at a red heart, with an hourglass in the other hand, originated only in the 19th century. Perhaps no pirate had more variations of his flag than Bartholomew Black Bart Roberts. His first known design showed a figure holding a sword, standing on 2 skulls marked with the letters ABH and AMH, a Barbadian's head and a Martinican's head. This flag is authentically documented. Court records and eyewitness accounts confirm its description. It was a personal declaration of vengeance against Barbados and Martinique, whose governors had taken a harsh stance against pirates. Another of Roberts' flags depicted a figure, likely Roberts himself, standing beside a skeleton holding an hourglass. The motif symbolized death and the fleeting nature of life. Some modern books, such as The Golden Age of Piracy by Bennerson Little, also present a third version in which Roberts holds the hourglass while Death carries a spear. However, this design appears in no primary source. It is a later visual composite created from interpreted descriptions. A special place among pirate flags belongs to the banner of Christopher Moody, who at one point served under Roberts before operating independently along the Caribbean coast and in West Africa. His flag displayed winged hourglasses, a skull, and a dagger, 3 symbols associated with ruthlessness and the end of life. The red background signaled that Moody would offer no quarter. His flag represents the final echo of the older flibustier tradition, favoring blood over compromise. Its existence is confirmed in British records, detailing the capture of Moody's crew at Cape Coast Castle in 1722. Lesser-known but equally intriguing captains, such as Richard Worley, used simple designs like a skull above crossed bones, while Stede Bonnet flew a banner with a skull, heart, and dagger, a combination symbolizing courage, suffering, and vengeance. John Quelch, executed in Boston in 1704, is often associated with a flag depicting a skeleton with an hourglass. In reality, however, court records mention no such emblem. The only documented fact is that his ship sailed under the English St. George's Cross. The popular depiction of his pirate flag emerged only in the 19th century and belongs more to legend than to history. There were also green flags, white flags, red flags with yellow stripes, and even pre-Jolly Roger banners such as that of Bartholomew Sharp, described as a red flag adorned with white and green ribbons. This was more of a decorative ensign than a symbol of death. Pirates of that era were still seeking their own visual language. These examples show clearly that pirate flags were not mere decoration. They were personal emblems, as expressive as the heraldic crests of nobility. Each symbol was a statement of strength, defiance, and the decision to live and die beyond the bounds of the law. Today, these flags are often displayed together in illustrations, maps, and museum exhibits. Their diversity demonstrates that the term Jolly Roger never referred to a single design, but to an entire visual tradition within the world of piracy. In the first half of the 18th century, the world began to change. The great colonial powers that had once tolerated, or even supported, privateers no longer considered piracy an acceptable instrument of warfare. Britain, France, and Spain strengthened their naval fleets and launched a coordinated hunt for all who made their living by plunder at sea. With new maritime laws and faster warships, the Golden Age of Piracy began to fade, and with it, their flags. Those who were captured ended their days on the gallows. During executions, their banners were often burned publicly, symbolically destroying their power. A flag that had once terrified the entire Atlantic became a forbidden symbol. From surviving documents, we know that a few flags were seized during raids and kept as evidence, but the vast majority have not survived to this day. What we now call the Jolly Roger are reconstructions based on eyewitness testimony, naval reports, and period illustrations. Although some details remain uncertain, the symbolism itself is unquestionably authentic. Yet, with the end of piracy, the flags did not disappear entirely. They lived on in songs, legends, and adventure literature. In the 19th century, during the Romantic era, they became symbols of freedom, defiance, and the boundlessness of the sea. Writers like Robert Louis Stevenson transformed the skull and crossed cutlasses into an emblem of adventure rather than crime. Later, in the age of film, the black flag returned once more, now as a dramatic element in stories meant to inspire wonder rather than fear. In the First World War, the Jolly Roger unexpectedly became a symbol of British submarines. After a successful mission, each submarine crew hoisted a black flag with a skull and crossbones, a quiet message that they had returned from the depths victorious. The tradition was introduced by Commander Max Horton of HMS E9 in 1914, and later spread throughout the entire submarine force. The symbol appeared again in the Second World War. What had once been a banner of death became a sign of pride, courage, and return from darkness. The skull motif also appeared in other military traditions, most notably in the Prussian and later German Totenkopf, a symbol dating back to the 18th century. Originally, it represented a reminder of mortality and a pledge of service until death. Like pirates, soldiers wore the skull both as a warning and as a vow. The skull symbol resurfaced in the Vietnam War as well, and to this day it can be seen on the aircraft of the U.S. Navy's Strike Fighter Squadron 103, the Jolly Rogers. Today, the appearance of most pirate flags is known only from written records, eyewitness accounts, and a handful of illustrations found in period chronicles. The original banners have not survived. They were destroyed, burned, or simply decayed over time. Yet the descriptions left behind are detailed enough to allow us to reconstruct, with a high degree of confidence, what these flags likely looked like. Naval reports from British and French warships at the turn of the 17th and 18th centuries describe the colors, shapes, and motifs of several flags. Many additional descriptions came from the interrogations of captured pirates after 1718, listing the banners under which their captains sailed. Modern reconstructions found in museums and academic literature are based on these primary sources. However, it is important to remember that many of these designs are partially speculative. In some cases, sources contradict one another. Different witnesses sometimes describe the same flag in entirely different ways, disagreeing on colors or symbols. 19th century illustrators further reshaped these designs according to the romantic notions of piracy prevalent at the time. This is why several versions of the same flag exist today, such as those attributed to Bartholomew Roberts or Edward Teach. Despite these uncertainties, pirate flags share a common foundation. They all convey the same message. Their power does not lie in perfect shapes, but in the idea they represent. Pirates used them not only to intimidate, but also to define their own identity. In the modern era, they have become cultural symbols. The black flag appears on sailing vessels, in films, in popular culture, and even in military insignia. Yet these banners still remind us that the line between truth and legend is thin, and that even a piece of black cloth can carry a story forever remembered in the history under the black flag.